4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Testing, 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 testing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13. Testing, testing, testing. Test 1, 2. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Fucking testing, test, 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 test. Test, 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 test. Test 1, 2. Test, 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 test. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing microphone. Test 1, 2. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Testing microphone. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Test.
We will see how tonight goes. I had open heart surgery December 26th, and I have been home 2 weeks. So the doctor looked at my calendar, said yes to some things that have been before tonight, and he was correct. He said I could do this as a test trial. So if I feel like I need to go home, I have a ride in the audience that will take me home when I need to, and Miss Sarah will take over, but we will get on with the show. First, I want each of the counselors to introduce themselves. I'll start with you, Christine, Counselor Ireland, and just say who you are, and for those of you that are new, tell us a little bit about yourselves.
Can you hear me? Okay.
I can.
Good. I'm Christine Ireland. I was born in Salt Lake City, but I was raised in Omaha, Nebraska. But I've lived in Westminster for 37 years and raised my family here. So they're all native Coloradans, and I look forward to working with all of you and working for you.
Hi, my name is Amber Hott. I'm brand new on council. I've lived here for 15 years. I raised my 3 children here. They're all young adults, and just looking forward to getting to know everyone and working together on council.
I'm Mayor Pro Tem Sarah Nermella, and I have 3 kids here, and I've only lived in Westminster since I've been in Colorado. I came here about 13 years ago. I love the city.
I'm Counselor Dave DeMott. I've lived in Westminster since my parents brought me home from Lutheran in Wheat Ridge. So I have 4 kids, 2 still at home, and my wife and I live in the countryside neighborhood, and so this is my 6th year on council.
Hello all, I am Counselor Claire Carmelia, and I've been in the area a little over 10 years now, and I work in the IT technology field, and I love to volunteer and be of service in and around the community, so you may see me, and I'm excited and look forward to meeting all of you.
Hi everyone, my name is Obi Azadi. I've been on City Council since 2021. Sorry I was late. I came from a flight last night and everything's been behind this whole day, so sorry about that. But I couldn't miss this one. This is my favorite event, and I wanted to just be here to make sure that I speak with all of you, and I'm glad to be here.
I would just ask counselors if these are your things, we vacate them so we have a whole row in the front row, just like church. It's the last. Next, I would love to know, and we would, who's in our crowd. So Andy, if you would just give the microphone. Here's what I want. Name and your subdivision. Name and your subdivision. That's what I'd like.
John Jurchek, Vista Ridge, part of Highland Hills.
Maddie Scott, The Ranch.
John Whedon, I forget the name of where I'm living, but it's off of Independence and Wadsworth Parkway.
Why don't we just go this group and then we'll go over.
Lori Hannigan, I live at The Ranch. Nancy Paul, The Ranch. Roberta Bourne, High Point.
Evan Siegel, I live across the street.
Lou and Kathy Pasco, Northridge.
Kayla Jones, Promenade.
Terry Shaver, Bradburn.
Chris Canfield, Legacy Ridge.
Mike Gillis and Kelly Rich from North Park East Homeowner Association, president of 511 living units.
Jeremy Cook, Shaw Heights.
Brandon Gerke.
Christina.
Jerkeisha Armstrong, Denver, Colorado.
Michelle Townjo, Quail Crossing.
Rich Towndrow, Amherst.
Mark Flora, The Ranch.
Larry Dunn, North Park.
Joanne Valdrasa, Country Club Highlands.
Milan Valdrasa, Country Club Highlands.
Mons Ortega, Westminster.
Itzel Gomez, Westminster.
Pat Middleton, Legacy Ridge.
Mike Middleton, Legacy Ridge.
Alex Luna, Westminster.
Bev Bishop, South Westminster.
Jim Toll down by the tracks in the old Hart District.
Tina Harding, Green Knolls.
Ann Sutton, Westfield Village.
Gary Shea, Harris Park.
Bruce Baker, Quail Hill.
Marisela Acevedo, Westminster.
Grover Sardison, Harris Park, or Half Forgotten Westminster.
Doug Hall, Wandering View. Parker Brow, Westcliff.
Tracy Craftharp, Arvada, Jeffco County Commissioner.
Burnthorpe Support Device.
Chris Dempson, across the street and down the hill.
Dick Andrews, Sheridan Green.
Carroll Beach, The Ranch.
Dave Carpenter, Countryside.
Chuck Busby, Schoenberg Farms.
Kathy Busby, Schoenberg Farms.
Patty McLaughlin, Legacy Bridge.
Jamie Chavez, Highland Village.
John Richardson, Sheridan Green.
Bill Selznick, Kings Mill.
David Bernard, Cotton Creek.
Marcy Halloin, West, Wandering View.
Carol Campbell, Legacy Ridge.
And I am Gloria Finelli from the farm. And are you related to
A little bit.
Darlene Vickers, Schoenberg Farms.
And do we, the folks back there?
Sarah Keith, Waverly Acres.
Barbara Brenny, Countryside.
I see being waved off. Okay, we have this many live questions that you did today. This many came in from the past week or so. So let's get started. First one's on homelessness, but let me share if we don't have all the answers because we don't do all the day-to-day things. If we don't know, we'll say so. But on our website, all of these questions will be put up and the answers will be put. So whether your neighbor could be here tonight or not, just share with them. You and they can go there to get all the answers because I don't know that we're going to get through everything tonight. First one, talk about homelessness population and encampments in Westminster and about crime in Westminster and what top crimes in our area. So, who wants to start?
I guess I'll start. I'm on the end here. I know that crime's increased in Westminster. I walked many neighborhoods. Many people are upset about the homelessness, people camping on their yards, in their parks. Crime's increased in certain neighborhoods more than others, and it's representative of the homelessness that's near there, and I'm very concerned about it, and I think there needs to be consequences instead of handouts. Go ahead.
I do know that we did have quite a few vacancies in our police department, and we've almost filled those vacancies, so that will help. We also got a grant to help a lot of with the traffic. So I don't know if you've noticed, but more people are being pulled over for speeding and running red lights. And I don't know how many of you saw the Westminster window. We just got the count back as far as how many homeless people we have here. And the count, it's probably a little bit more, but it was just under 150. And so, in my opinion, and I'm just speaking for myself, in a city of 117,000 people, I don't see why we can't help 150 people get off the streets.
Amen. I agree.
Is there a legal place to camp?
Excuse me, we do things by the card, and we've got a ton of things to go through. I will remind you, no clapping or booing, any of that stuff, it takes time. We've got a lot of things to discuss with you, you want to hear. So let us keep going. Anyone else on that subject, or are we good?
Go ahead.
If you're going to speak, go ahead.
I was just going to add that we do have 2 homeless navigators that work for the city, and that is an avenue that assists us with being able to reach out to those people that are experiencing homelessness. And we do have a process for working with each individual to figure out what is the solution for them. Not everybody has a solution, but the city works also with the counties to utilize the dollars that are coming in from the counties and the services that the counties provide. And what we do is on top of that. I just want to make it clear too that the city doesn't get funding from the state or federal government for any social services. Those are provided through the county. So anything that we do is on top of that. So just wanted to make that point.
Councilor Dumont.
The portion about the county is really important. Why it's nice that we see some of our partners from the county in Jefferson County with Commissioner Kraft Tharp here tonight, because that is an area that the counties deal with. However, it is something that we as a city have to deal with as well. And so just a couple quick things that I would tell you. If it's on private property, you call the police, those people will be removed that day because that is the law, that's trespassing. Where it becomes more difficult is public property, so parks, open space, sidewalks. There have been court rulings that say what we can and can't do. There are different opinions about those court rulings, but the line that we've taken as a city is to listen to those, because we also don't want to violate people's civil rights, and it is public property. So it's an interesting thing that we have to deal with. So we do have a process in which we try to work with those folks, get them services, and then if they don't take those services, because sometimes folks don't take those services, they don't want the help, they just want to be left alone and do what they want to do, and at some point, because of public safety, we do have to make the move. But there is a process we have to take. It's just as frustrating to us as it is to the public. It's a difficult thing, but we also want to treat those folks humanely. They're our neighbors too. So for all they grew up here their whole life and hit hard times. So it's a difficult challenge that we have to deal with. You talked about crime too. Those are kind of 2 different things. They do intersect certainly, but there have been increasing crime across the country, and Colorado has been no different than that. We have struggled through COVID and the unrest of the early 2020s, where we, just like a lot of police departments, lost a lot of people in law enforcement. We're at a really good place now, but council over the last 4 years has also worked with our attorney's office, our courts, and our police department to say, what kind of tools can we give you at a municipal level in order to address crime? So those are some things that I know that we've passed. They're taking time to put into place. But I guess the bottom line is we hear you, we understand those things that are impacting our community, and we're doing stuff. We'll see if it's the right stuff or not, but we'll keep working on it.
Just remind all of our speakers, we have interpreters, so can slow down just a hair. Councilor Camille, I
think it's all been said.
Okay, Councilor Azadi.
I'll just add real quick that in the city where opportunity thrives, crime doesn't stand a chance, right? So I think if we can build a community, the answer to how do we help folks who are experiencing homelessness, the answer is to give them a home. And we can't forget that piece, that we are in the midst of a housing crisis right now. And I don't mean for rent apartments. We need homes that folks can afford. And lots of folks who are becoming homeless can't afford. Something went wrong in their life. Their car was stolen. They can't pay their medical bills. Something went wrong in their lives. And they need a helping hand. And we have all gone through those moments, right? And I think when we talk about the homeless and we talk about this housing crisis, we need to make sure we get back to the root of the cause, which is that we need housing that folks can afford. So that's what this council is focused on. That's what we're going to do. Thank you.
And on the crime issue that was brought up, you are the best answer to not having crime, and that's because if you pay attention to your neighbors and you get to know them, 5 doors down on each side of you and the 5 across that live from you, whether it's an apartment or a home. Knowing those people, knowing when somebody's maybe over with a van loading something up, but you know they're not home. Good time to not get on Nextdoor and say, does anybody know what's happening here? Get on the 911 call and get police there, because they would rather come and not be needed than come or later and they could have caught them. So next one, how can I report when weeds need cut in my neighborhood? It is city property. I report it, but never gets cut. I set fire on it once. At least this person is truthful. Okay.
If folks are not aware, the city website does have a portal where you can submit a ticket, and then it goes through a process. And I know that for anyone in IT, the last thing anyone wants to hear is submit a ticket, but I'm telling you, if you do the ticket, then it has to go through the process and it has to be answered. So then we will get back to you, and that's the best way that I suggest handling this. As someone with an environmental background, I beg you to please not set fire to the grass, because we are in a serious wildfire-prone area. So let's protect our neighbors.
Okay. What are the plans for the rodeo building on 73rd, and what is planned for the vacant lot on 73rd and Lowell?
That's an exciting one
Yeah.
that we have. Our economic development department is working on a lot of different projects in the historic Westminster area. Anything from 72nd Avenue to the rodeo market. The rodeo market is the economic development department is working to bring a restaurant to the rodeo market, and to be able to reactivate that site so that it continues to bring more people down to 73rd Avenue. Now I just forgot the second part of the question. We'll never find it. The corner of 73rd and Lowell. So that site is it was originally a part of a project that was going to be funded through community development block grant funds through the Housing and Urban Development Department, and we were able to recalibrate the project that was identified for that site into an event area. So the city staff is working on getting, I think they're either working on quotes or their intent is, oh, thank you. Their intent is...
I'm trying to lip read over here.
You knew exactly what I was talking about.
Thank you. Their intent is to have that site ready for events this summer. So hopefully that'll be a location where you'll be able to enjoy the community and, I don't know, sorry.
It's okay.
Is it not working?
Here's what they want.
Anybody else want to talk about it? Well, it's being
So
fixed.
as far as the rodeo market, which was the second part of the question, that's yet to be determined. I don't, for those of you who have followed that, at one point it was supposed to be a brew pub, and then COVID happened, and the person who was going to take that property and put a restaurant there, that didn't work out financially after COVID. So I am not sure what we're going to do with that yet, and I haven't heard that there is some solid plans put in front of us. I think one of the directions that I, for one, and I've heard my colleagues, granted we have had some turnover in council after the last election, but we have talked about the fact that that property does belong to the city, and so some of the things that were supposed to be done to that through that brew pub still need to happen, because that is a historic site. There are some dollars that were put into it from historic dollars, so there are limitations around what you can do to it and how you take care of it. So I think that is something that we need to focus on, at least making sure that we get that building back up to par. But as far as what happens with it long term, we're not quite there yet to know what it is.
I'd like to speak about it. I'd like to see 3 suggestions from citizens in the area and 3 bids on each of those suggestions. I want the citizens' input, and I also want to get 3 bids. I don't want just a restaurant thrown out there. Maybe that's not what the citizens want. I want what the citizens want. And so that's my approach to the rodeo.
Yeah, I'll just say that we do have a Harris Park plan, and that was created with community involvement, and that is we're trying to implement that plan, and so this was a pretty popular, it wasn't everybody wanted it, but it was a majority of folks that commented on the use of that site, or of that building, so it may not be perfect for everybody, but it's a great opportunity to activate and help activate the 73rd Avenue district. So
I'll just add that this area, as most of you know, has been long neglected, unfortunately, and I'm personally very sorry that you haven't seen much action on this. Just wanted to acknowledge that, and we also don't want to, and we shouldn't want to over-survey you. If you've noticed, we've kind of given you tons of surveys in the last several years, and I think there's survey fatigue that's happening, and we just need action at this point. So I'm happy that economic development is working to get, hopefully, a restaurant to that area, but if sentiments change and we need to survey you again, we'll let you know, but we are looking to take action.
Just real quickly on that, from my perspective, and again, I've been on council 6 years. I ran 2 times before that, so I've kind of been paying attention to things for at least the last decade, aside from the fact I've lived in the community my entire life. But I will tell you that in historic Westminster, one of the things that's most challenging that I hear the biggest frustration is that we've done survey after survey, we've done plan after plan, and then we don't actually do anything with them. I have seen binders full from residents down there of different plans and surveys and things that they've done. So at the end of the day, I do think that we need to figure out what we're going to do and actually take action, because just another survey is going to, I think that's just going to frustrate people, and understandably so. I would put back on the council too, one of the things that's important for us to make sure that there's no area of town that's neglected is that each one of us try to make sure we spend time, and I know Councilor Zadi spends a lot of time down in that area that he just mentioned, but that's also up to us to make sure that we're down there hearing from our residents, so that when we do surveys and stuff, we get that real feedback one-on-one versus what comes through in a survey. Not that they're bad, but it just gives you a different flavor, in my opinion, on what's going on in a particular part of the city.
Just to offer a little hope and insight as well to the conversation, I just came from the North Metro Arcs Coalition meeting to here, and I can't share all the plans that are coming because they're all still in draft form, but I just want to let folks know that while we don't have a plan specifically for the rodeo yet, we have a lot of upcoming plans this year and into 2025 for that area, and we're paying a lot of attention to that area, and there's a lot to come. There's a lot of exciting events coming, and I think that we're excited to go out and celebrate it. So I hope that when we get those events going, you'll all come and celebrate with us and bring life to the area, because that's what it's about, is bringing a little industry and commerce to help us out, help out our neighbors, and bring it all together. So just know that there's a lot in action.
Okay, why are Cora requests put with such high price tags, and how are funds allocated for policing? Go ahead.
So 2 different topics. On the Cora, that's a question that I think is great. There are laws in place that say what we as a government entity have to respond to, but there are also laws in place that say what we can charge for them, and it's basically covering the administrative cost. I, for one, think that that's something for transparency. I'll give you an example. Before I was on council, before we broadcast and put all the recordings of study sessions online, I would go to all the meetings, and if I missed a meeting, I would listen to the recordings for council meetings and study sessions. For study sessions, you actually had to go take a USB into the city manager's office and ask him to give you the recording, because they did record them, but they didn't post them. And so I got into a situation where I had asked for a month's worth, and I was told I was going to be charged for it, and I thought that was ludicrous. And so the reason that it's online now is because I pitched a fit and said that's wrong. That shouldn't take you that much time. And like Claire, I'm an IT professional. So when I was told that was a lot of work, I'm like, don't give me that. That's not true. And I'm not saying that our staff isn't responsive. This was many years ago, but that's the wrong approach in my mind. So that is something that if there's a specific instance that you've seen with our own city, I'd ask you to put it past your elected officials, just like if you don't think you're getting a good response on anything. Doesn't mean that I necessarily am going to agree with you. I do think that there's also a line with that where people ask for core request after core request, and they have every right to it, but it just depends. What are you trying to accomplish? Let us help you figure out what you're trying to accomplish versus just asking for a lot of requests, because it does take staff time to do that, but we also want a good balance of transparency and trying to figure out what you're after and how we can help you.
Can we provide more context for that question?
In terms of what?
So the Armstrong family, Torrance McCall was killed over a year ago, and they were trying to find answers for his case, and the police and court requests have essentially put really high price tags for a working class family to just get information on their son, and nothing has happened. Like, these costs should not be put onto the working class people, and why do we have such highly funded systems when we can't even provide answers to them?
So, and I guess that's maybe the second part of the question. So I'm going to gather that this came from over here. With an investigation, it's hard for me to say solidly exactly what the challenges are around that. When you get into a police investigation and getting information, there are things that you're allowed to see, and there are certain things that are part of investigation that maybe they haven't released. I can't speak to the specific instance. I still would put the same lens on it that I did before. If it's possible and we can help with that, happy to do that. Sometimes there are reasons that you can't. But if the law says that you have a right to it, then I believe that you have a right to it and that we should make sure that we're giving you what you're asking for.
We have an email on this one, so for the person that it does affect, personally, you will get something back from either staff or a city manager. But sure. Next question. I'm sure you didn't think this was coming. How is Westminster engaged with Rocky Mountain Airport? What is being done about the flight paths, leaded fuel dropping on us? Noise easements for flight paths, the amount of flights, landing, takeoff. You're a representative. Would you love to speak?
I don't know. I'll preface that I'm going to speak because I am the liaison to that group. I'm not trying to take all the time up here today. I know my colleagues have plenty to say that can benefit you all. But with this particular one, so the Rocky Mountain Community Noise Roundtable is basically a group of different elected officials who are liaisons from their respective area. We have Arvada, people from Boulder, Jefferson County, and basically the FAA, when you have noise complaints about an airport, that is your avenue where you have affected surrounding government entities or areas or communities where you can go and work with each other and basically share your grievances with FAA. That is where those grievances should be aired according to what the FAA set up. Some time ago, Westminster left that noise roundtable because we were frustrated with how slow it was taking. I will tell you that I get frustrated a lot with government because things take time. That's just the nature of government. But with that being said, we were explained to that this is the avenue that the FAA wants in order to basically address noise complaints. And if you don't have all the affected communities as part of that, the FAA might not listen to the other communities. So really Westminster, in essence, could be hamstringing their neighbors and not participating. You heard about lead is also a concern. The Noise Roundtable specifically is there for noise. That is where we address noise. When it comes to terms of lead, the City Council has been working with staff and state representatives, federal representatives to talk to CDPHE and anybody else who will listen in order to talk about is there valid reasons for people to worry about the lead. In the prop planes, they do use lead in the older planes. That is something that Jefferson County Airport is moving ahead of what the FAA's schedule is in order to provide unleaded fuel to the planes that currently use leaded fuel. That's a simple answer to a complex problem. And so there is a lot of concern in the community across this variety of issues when it comes to the noise roundtable. You probably heard that in the news, the former director of the airport had said some things about the roundtable and that it was a waste of money. I don't know. I'm not part of Jefferson County. I don't run the airport. I don't know why he was separated from the airport, if it was on his own or he was asked to leave or what it was. I do know I was frustrated with his comments, just like everybody who's on the noise roundtable. I will tell you, I have to imagine that there was some frustration. I've sat at these meetings and we're really trying to do good. I've seen people storm out like school children, to be frank. And maybe that's going to get me some heat for saying that, but quite frankly, I could imagine the man was frustrated. I don't condone his comments, but I saw how he was treated in those meetings, and I'm sure he was starting to get fed up with it. And I could understand why. Doesn't make it right, but at the end of the day, that is our opportunity to work with our neighbors and the FAA in order to impact change when it comes to noise. And I think that we should continue to do that, and I think it would be a mistake to leave that, because that's our place where we take care of those issues. I was thinking about this a lot today. Think about it in terms of a loved one. If you get into a horrible argument with your spouse, they might say some horrible things. Does that mean that you're going to then say, well, you're the person I could work through this problem with, but what you said is just too bad? What was said was bad. That individual's no longer there. This is still the right avenue for us to deal with noise issues. We as a community will still continue to work with CDPHE and our other partners to try to address the health concerns. I know that this council is, and the prior council was determined to do such. But so it's just like a lot of the other things we talked about, it's one thing as far as planes, but it's a lot of different things that we're dealing with and who we have to talk to in order to try to address those variety of concerns when it comes to the airport, the noise, potential lead exposure, and all the different things that come along with the airport.
Go ahead.
I'll just add too that we are also, it's not just Westminster, it's not even just Jefferson County, it's also the EPA and their timeline that they've set for changing out the lead, and that's a pretty long timeline that they've set for us. And it's also the FAA, which is the Federal Aviation, I forget the administration, and they fund when an airport receives funding, they essentially don't have a ton of control over what's happening at that airport in terms of the amount of flights. And even with the CNR, I noticed, we had recently a consultant come in and try and look at different flight path options. It's very constrained. There's a lot of safety issues. And so it is frustrating, and I imagine it's frustrating for those who live there. We've seen an uptick in activity. There's a lot of flight school activity in the area, and I know there were some small, I think the successes are small with the CNR right now, right? There's a little bit of success around the edges, like the time frames.
We've made some suggestions, and it came out of one of the partners of the CNR went and spoke to the flight schools, spoke to the FAA, spoke to the airport personnel and said, would it work if we, past 10 o'clock, suggested that they use a different runway so that the flight path isn't over so many of the homes. And they said, yeah, that's fine. Everybody was actually on board with it. That doesn't mean that they absolutely can't use the other runway, because sometimes safety would say that's the runway they're going to use, and the FAA is the one who decides that. Or the pilot, who's the one who has to safely land that plane. But I'll tell you, I do live in the affected area. I live within a mile of the airport, and I've noticed the difference in the nighttime flights. So small victory. Not everybody sees it, but not everybody has the same concern. That's more of the training planes. There's a lot of complaints and concern about the increased traffic with the bigger airplanes, and so again, it's it was a small success. That work with the consultant that you mentioned, that's ongoing. We're still kind of in the early phases of that, honestly. And that's a lot of, how do you work with all these different communities that say, okay, Westminster says, okay, maybe if you move the air traffic over here, that would be better for our community. That might not be better for our neighbors in Arvada or Superior or Boulder. And so it's, it takes all those people being at the table saying, what's your tolerance for the noise? Where can we move it that is, a little bit better for everybody and that each community is going to be happy with, or at least it'll be better for them.
Okay, on to street racing. Street racing noise, Highway 36, Sheridan 88th. There's about 5 others I could mention. This is easy. Get your pen and pencil out. It is reportstreetracing.com. And I have it on my iPhone. I report it at 1 in the morning. I will report it at 4 in the morning. But they need to know what time. Reportstreetracing.com. You have to fill it out. You have a choice whether you want to be contacted back or not, but our police group is working with the region again, and they need your eyes, your ears, and no sleep to know when it's happening so that when they see patterns again, they go after them. They have been on 36. We have caught people going 117 miles an hour there. And those people get tickets and sometimes lose their license on spot. So it takes all of us again. And I know in the middle of the night it isn't fun, but I have mine tagged so I can just do it and go back to sleep if possible, or shut the window so I can at least go to sleep. But it's horrible. And there's going to be someday a huge crash and innocent people killed. People make bad choices. And people that are street racing are making bad choices on our streets. Police chief knows it. He's been aggressive. What is the city doing to eliminate single-use petrochemical plastics? I don't mean charging us for plastic bags at the stores either. Every level of eliminating petrochemical plastic packaging. This is one that came in, and whoever wants to answer, there are some cheat notes on the back from staff.
I guess I'm answering. The city currently offers an at-your-door special collection service once a year, and this service can come pick up your hard-to-recycle items. Recycling is something that we are working on. We are opening a main facility. It's a 10-minute drive, is that correct? From everyone who lives in Westminster. And one of the reasons that we're doing that is because we can take a lot more items that are hard to recycle. So for instance, saran wrap, plastic bags from the grocery store, you usually can't recycle those kind of things. You can actually recycle that kind of plastic. So we're able to take on a lot more hard to recycle. Also with the recycling that we have currently, unfortunately, sometimes people put things in those bins. There's broken glass, there's chemicals, and sometimes everything that are in those collection sites get ruined and have to be thrown out. And we're spending a lot of money every week cleaning those containers, and a lot of the items in there don't end up being recycled. So this way, a lot more can be recycled, and it's also a lot safer. And you can learn more about the sustainability and what we're doing with recycling and at westminsterco.gov/sustainability center.
Thanks. What is going on in, were you going to answer something? Oh. What is going on at 92nd, just north of the bowling alley?
Oh.
Oh, yeah. What is going on there? You know where it's at.
It's a townhome project.
Oh, okay.
So 92nd, so it's on the north side of the downtown area, north of, what is it now, Bolero? Right. Yeah, and it's going to be a townhome project on kind of stretching across the 2 blocks that face onto 92nd Avenue. There are there are townhomes that are a little bit further south along Harlan, and then there will be condos that are going to come along Westminster Boulevard, along that block that already has the townhomes. But the north side is just townhomes.
Those are pretty, in my mind, pretty exciting developments for the downtown because they're all for of townhomes by the same builder, and they had a right to do another couple blocks of townhomes and then condos that are all going to be for purchase, which if you follow the condo market, there haven't been condos built in the state of Colorado, I think, for over a decade. So we're pretty pleased that that's going to happen, and that's, helps that area have some of that owner occupied.
And the scale of those townhomes, they'll be 2 stories, trying to scale down to the 2-story homes across the street.
Okay, can we get rid of no parking in front of the rodeo market? Parking on 73rd is precious.
What?
Precious, yes. So, I know they had a sign up for a van or a truck that kept, no, it just staying there overnight and never knew when that was going to be moved. So they put that up and the truck's gone, but the rest of us, when we have events at the Grange, can't park there.
So maybe that could be a follow-up for staff to talk to us about maybe an in-between of a time limit parking. So we'll take that as a takeaway.
Squires Park upgrades, future date following 2021 architectural landscape review. That's the first part.
So that was my question, and the question asks, when is that upgrade going to occur?
Oh, okay. And then what will the upgrade require nearby townhomes to retrofit to use reclaimed water or for irrigation, ? And on-site senior meals similar to Broomfield, ?
It's going to be follow-ups.
Yes. I saw your hands moving and thought somebody down here was waving at me. Nope. Staff will have to answer these and get back to us. What are future development plans for any empty tract of land at 112th and 104th and Sheridan?
So we do have a comprehensive plan that shows the land uses that are allowed to be built on any vacant land. So that's the first place that you want to go if you're trying to understand what's going to happen there in the future. These sites also have, some of them have planned unit developments, but they have zoning. And you can ask the city for what the zoning is on those sites. Some of them have a more refined land use description of what would be there. So, for example, the northwest corner of 112th and Sheridan, that's more of an office and business park. And the southeast corner I know is designated for, I don't know if we changed it. I think it's designated for residential right now, but we'd have to, I can't remember. The best thing to do is look on the map for any of these vacant sites.
But this question will be answered online. I read last year that the federal/Zuni connector widening would be started this year. Question timeline.
It starts this summer. Oh, community engagement for that improvement starts this summer. That's exciting. I drive that every day, multiple times. So, and I know we mentioned this. We also have an improvement that's coming along 128th, east of Zuni, however we say it, and we just want to make sure that all those improvements are timed so that we have a way to get out of that area. So, I look forward to the outreach.
This summer.
So it's
CDOT's responsible. We are going to share
Right.
that information. CDOT.
Perfect.
Oh, CDOT's doing it. Okay. I like our staff.
Has City Council reclaimed the exclusive package liquor license that the city gave to Marzak Fine Foods at the new downtown? We will let staff answer that one. Oh, let me see if that one's, I'm not sure where the question is. Can you place cameras in the apartments? Can you place cameras in the apartments?
Is there any more, like,
No?
they're probably more worried about crime?
And we don't have anybody to get back to on that, so sorry. What is the status of the 120th Avenue median between Lowell and Huron? 120th between Lowell and Huron. I know it's because it looks ugly.
I think it's funded, I believe. No. We'll have to get back on that one. I remember something coming up, but that's one of those things with the 120th and us. A lot of that is difference between different municipalities and CDOT, and there's a lot of complexity around it. But I seem to recall something coming past us with that. I just don't remember exactly where it was. CDOT owned. Yeah.
Okay, Waverly Acres Park is very neglected for several years. It is covered in prairie dog holes and feces. I have seen children picking it up. It is amazing no one has broken an ankle or leg in the holes. When is the city going to fix this park?
That's a great question. Hopefully, is there, I'm wondering in the response for this one, since we probably, I wish we had it for today, but if there's a schedule of park improvements, or at least, because we have a capital improvement plan that covers 5 years. I know Parks has these planned out, and when people have asked about when is this tennis court going to be resurfaced or so on, there are dates when those are going to happen. So it would be helpful to share that.
We're taking notes, and anything that we need to follow up on, we'll write a written response and post it online at the end of next week.
I would ask too, because a lot of this is around prairie dog response, so maybe council could get a brief on exactly how we're handling that today. And I know that that's one of those areas where there are two different trains of thought. Some people don't want you to touch the prairie dog, some people want you to eradicate them. So it would be good to know what our stance on that is.
And it says are there any plans to control the population of them also? So the person has an email on here, but we will get those answers.
Just one more comment there too.
Sure.
Our Parks and Rec Department, we're going through they're planning out, it's called a vision plan for our parks and recreation centers. And that vision plan will encompass current state of our recreation centers, our parks, et cetera, what we're going to do with them, the use, the demand, supply, that kind of stuff. So that will be done later this year. So more to come on that. So I'm guessing some of these questions on parks is part of that project as well.
Just two statements. Traffic control on Sims. I don't know if that's all speeding. I've gotten a lot of calls about the Sunday, because we don't do parking tickets on Sundays out there for the dog runs, the off-leash park. Don't know, I know everything's packed. Everybody's parking wherever they want to park on Sundays. I hear that every Sunday from people. So, and then affordable housing. So.
That was mine on the Sims.
Oh.
So I live, my house backs up to Sims. And the traffic that we get from the FedEx trucks barreling down that street, it literally makes my upper windows rattle.
Does anybody have a pen I can borrow?
And so that's what I was referring to.
Okay. Andy, do you have a pen so we can clarify this? So you know what you're answering? Okay. Affordable housing, anyone?
That's a big one. We, in the past few years, we certainly have been focusing on preservation of existing affordable housing. We've had, over the past 10 years, multiple affordable housing projects being built within the city, and that has been fantastic because it's hit quite a range of incomes within the community that has opened up the opportunity people to stay. And this is what we need to continue to do. As we, over the next 20 to 30 years, our senior population is going to double. And that's significant when you think about it, because often seniors are on fixed incomes. And we need to figure out how we are going to accommodate all of these households that are going to be on fixed incomes in the future. And we also don't have many options. We don't have ownership options right now to downsize. And we also, the market rate rental units that we have are very expensive. And so we have a problem where people are kind of stuck in their houses. We don't have the affordability for people to have a choice to go anywhere, whether it's ownership or rental. And so that needs to be a focus for us moving forward. Over last year, we did sign on to Proposition 123, which would allow us to access additional funding to go towards projects that would serve our community. And next 3 years, we will create a certain number of affordable housing units. And I think that commitment's pretty small in terms of what we actually need to do. So, yeah, it's not going to end.
Yeah, I would just like to mention, speaking of senior housing, this is something that we really needed to have started on already, because the current places that we do have for senior housing, they all have waiting lists of a year or more. And so the housing that we do have, that's not something that somebody is easily able to get into. So because our population of seniors is going to be doubling, we really need to be looking to the future, because otherwise we're going to be there and we're not going to have any options. So that's something that we really need to be focusing on.
I want to talk about it. I have been looking about how many apartments we have for rent in this city, and we have 2,100 vacant apartments right now. I do not think we need any more apartments. People do not want to live in apartments. They want single-family homes. Single-family homes create wealth, because if you don't have a home, it's hard to raise a family in an apartment. These apartments aren't family-oriented. I feel like our city is becoming for single people only. Families matter to me, and I don't think we need any more apartments built. I will not approve another apartment while I am on the city council.
Even for seniors?
Well, seniors is another story, but this high-density housing that we're building, 2,100. I guess we could make one of our apartment complexes for seniors, because they're not all being filled. And it's a facade, and the market is going to play the part. Because I'll tell you what, these rents are going to start coming down when you have that many apartments for rent. The market will determine what the prices are.
Councilor DeMont?
So I think that one of the benefits I have of being the old guy here now is that I've seen some of the ones that we have put forward. So I would ask, when staff answers this question online, that maybe you put the ones that we've done over the last decade, because there have been both affordable, there have both been senior. Certainly, the issue is that the need in Colorado isn't going to be met in Westminster. That's just a hard reality that we have to face. And so that may mean the reality is sometimes you have to move to another city. I hate to say it, but it's just the reality that this council can't control, because you're talking about people's property and property rights and what can be built. What this council can do, I think that the majority of us have been doing. So if you look at a development like the Uplands, that is a balanced development. That is the last biggest development that will happen in the city of Westminster. And it has everything from affordable housing to single family to duplexes to, some custom homes in it as well. So it's hard to crack, but I do also think that balance in what we allow in the city is very important. So we did just, Mayor Pro Tem Nurmela mentioned our comprehensive plan. We did just approve a new comprehensive plan last year, and that really talks about what can be built through build out. We're under 10% left of greenfield to build out. And then we're going to be talking about what gets redeveloped. And so that plan is very, very important. And one of the things that I'm the proudest about it is that it says we can only build to the water that we have. And before, we were actually allowing allocation over water, which you can't, in my mind, you can't do. One of the things that we did put forward to staff is we want to make sure that we're not overbuilding to water, but putting in a place that if conservancy trends continue, that you could go back and make different choices. And then you could expand what you could build if the trends in water use continue to do what they've been doing, which if you look at our water use, they've declined. So that's allowed us to build more than maybe we thought we would be able to do 20 years ago. But it's all going to be about balance. And the other point I would like you to think about when we talk about seniors, we have had a handful of senior developments that are from active living to there's supposed to be one in downtown that's a little bit more higher end. When you talk about senior living, it's different for everybody. So some senior living, if you make the money ties to it, then some seniors won't be able to access that. So I'll use my own parents as an example. My dad's a retired Denver police officer, so he doesn't make all the money in the world, but he makes enough money that some of those things he wouldn't qualify for because his pension would be more than what they would allow. So even in the senior space, we need to make sure that we're having options that are as big of a variety as possible, keeping in mind we only have 10% left of land to develop in the city. So, this is really going to have to be in a regional approach of how this gets solved for the state of Colorado. It's not going to be all in Westminster, but just some things for you to think about. And obviously, there's a little bit of everything that any one of us might agree with or disagree with developments as they come forward, but there are challenges that we have to address.
Councilor Carmelia?
Yes, Councilor DeMott touched on some of the thoughts that I was going to share as well, but I wanted to invite the audience into awareness of where we're at in Westminster with what is left to develop. And staff can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that's actually around 4% left. And because there's plans for a lot of that, there's actually more like 2.8% left. Which means that it has been on all of our minds as to how to plan this land very, very carefully. And we've already had discussions concerning this so far. And we do have our strategic planning meeting coming up soon, where I know that this is going to be a priority for discussion in future plans. It also means that going forward, once this is built out, a lot of the work that we need around housing is going to have to be around rebuilding what already has been developed, right? It's going to be fixing what we have, or it's going to be starting anew. And so there can be some, constraints around that too. So just know that these are all things that are on top of our minds. We are taking input, and it's a very high priority as affordable housing is affecting just about everyone I know. And so just know that we're aware, and we have a lot of plans and discussions to come, and these are some of the constraints that we're working with.
Just to add real quick, so I've spoken to a lot of police officers lately, and we talk about housing, and I ask them, do you live near here, near Westminster? Many of them commute many, many, many miles. And I don't think, Councilor DeMott, I'm not sure, I don't think you meant it this way when you said that folks can just move. I think what you meant and what I feel here is that we have the responsibility as councilors to make sure that all residents, especially our workforce, when we talk about workforce housing, you know how many firefighters don't live here because it's too expensive. How many police officers don't live here? Nurses, teachers. It's not okay to leave it to the market because we have left it to the market. And what has happened the last several years? Has things gotten better? Has the market corrected itself? Or are our youth finding it hard to find a home, to start building their wealth journey when you get your first mortgage, right? Are our seniors finding it hard to downsize? I mean, so many calls I get are from seniors saying, hey, Obi, I have this big lot. I can't find a home. All I want is a condo, a townhouse, something that I don't need to maintain. But they can't find it. And that's not okay for us to just sit around and wait for the market to correct that. So that's why, to everyone's point that you've heard here, that's why this is going to be a focus for us. And it needs to be a focus for us.
I actually, since you addressed me, I'll address you back. I meant what I said. I didn't say that you have to leave. I said you might make the choice to leave because there isn't the options here. I did vote yes on the uplands because I know we need the housing. You didn't, and you had your reasons, and I understand that. I will tell you the other thing, that when we hear consistently from folks that are pushing this agenda, that it's the police officers and firefighters. My dad is a retired 33-year Denver police officer. You know where he lived? The city of Westminster. You want to know why? Because he didn't want to run into people that he put in jail. I've been with my dad when he ran into somebody he put in jail for murder. And you know what? He wasn't comfortable. I left that luncheon because I didn't want to sit there with him, because he was counting how many people were over there because he was afraid the guy might try something. I said, so point being, a lot of our firefighters and police officers choose to live in another city. I want them to have the choices that they can, but there is also a reality that government cannot guarantee that you're going to continue to live in this city. And nor do I think that we have a responsibility to guarantee where you can and cannot live. We should do our best to try to provide options, but it is not our responsibility to say, what kind of product. Developers are going to do that. We want to make sure that there are not roadblocks in front of those developers to put product in place that there is a need for, whether that's senior housing, affordable senior housing, workforce housing, single family home, or any other.
I would like to add more. If you didn't buy your house 20 years ago, it's almost impossible today. Unless you have wealthy parents, you're not going to be able to afford a house in Westminster. The neighborhood that I used to live in used to be starter homes. My husband bought a house in that neighborhood in 1997 for $125,000. That house today goes for $500,000. It is not worth $500,000. And that's what used to be starter homes here. So it costs $600,000, $700,000 to find a house here. Who are going to be homeowners when homes cost that much? That's why we need condos. That's why we need townhomes. We need properties that people can afford at price points we don't currently have, so they can get into the housing market.
And I'll just add, I'll just say again, it's the demographics that are really going to impact what our housing market looks like, where the demand is. We are actually, over the next 20 years, as I mentioned, we're doubling with senior households, but we are staying the same. No growth on households with children. So the demand for single-family homes not going to be as high. We are going to have an increase in single occupant households. That's going to rise. So you think about what types of homes and whether they're apartments or condos or what have you, are we going to have a demand for? And so we need to be focusing on providing that. And we have a great diversity, I have to say, within Westminster. We do have apartments, which is great. That means that people can come here, start their careers. Seniors can actually, if they can afford it, move into an apartment, but we don't have a lot of ownership, small condo options. The DRCOG, which is our Denver Regional Council of Governments, is doing a regional housing assessment, a needs assessment. What they have said is through 2050, we're going to need about 500,000 more units in this region. And half of those are going to be for incomes of 60% or less of our area median income. That reflects those types of households if you think about it, single occupant households and seniors with the limited incomes. So we have to be thinking about how do we make sure that we don't have a lot of empty homes over the next 20 years where no one can, if people can't afford, I'm sure they might go down, but we need to have households and unit types that actually meet the needs of the people that are going to be living here and the incomes.
And just to add there, I apologize, Councilor DeMott, for misattributing your opinion. I do disagree with it. I think it is in our responsibility as city councilors to do something about it, as many other municipalities are across the state. In Westminster, we just did a housing needs assessment. We hadn't done an update to that since 2017. We just completed it last month. And the results reflect everything you're hearing up here. Our city is unaffordable, and we need to do something about it.
Why do you spend money and time on a comprehensive plan only to ignore the zoning standards you approved with every developer on density?
That's a good question, and I wasn't here, so maybe some of the others would like to answer that,
I'd be
approve
happy
some of
to,
that.
because I think it's a mischaracterization of what happened, actually. When you look at the uplands specifically, which is probably the one we've gotten the most heat for, it could have been, and it was originally planned to be a lot more dense than it is. That is still somebody's private property that they get to develop. There is a list of criteria in which you can and can't say yes to a development. If you say no just because you don't like it and you feel like it shouldn't be there, that's not really a reason that the court might say, yeah, you're right there. They might say that property owner has every right to build that there. There have been properties that I voted no on and ones I voted yes on. The uplands is an example where some of it I thought was too dense, so I voted against certain rezoning, and there are parts of it that I thought were going to be too dense, and the developer then agreed to make it less dense in certain areas that they were working on. So that is part of the way that the process works. The process isn't a absolute, you have to do it exactly this way. It's a list of criteria that they have to meet within reason, just like any other kind of judge court kind of thing. So if you want to understand the criteria, they have it all on the website. I'd be happy to sit down with anybody and show you how we look at it. And I'm sure that our attorney would do the same with you, because that's what they do with us. And we have that criteria and say, A, B, C, D, does it meet this criteria or not? There are exceptions that can be made. The rules allow for exceptions to be made. So, in the example of the bigger ones, we've actually decreased the density. And so, and I actually, if you look at specifically uplands, you could actually go back to those hearings where some people were upset that we weren't allowing it to be as dense as it could be, so.
And I would just say we also have mandatory compliance between our comprehensive plan and our zoning, so we have to make sure that they, I see a planning commissioner agreeing. So we have to, any project has to stay within the comprehensive plan, or they have to apply for a comprehensive plan change.
Question. Please put straight arrow at 116th and Pecos going east from Ranch. There's not a stoplight there. Or is we don't have a name, is the person?
Oh, that was my question.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, as you exit the ranch on 116th, it has a left-only arrow. It should also have a straight one to go straight, because the people now are going straight or in the right lane, stopping people from making right-hand turns.
Gotcha. Okay, our folks will take a peek. Policing, Cora requests prices being unbearable.
That's the same question
Yeah.
earlier.
All right. Since 2021, inflation is approximately 67% per year, while affordable housing, property ownership, no property tax.
Property owner says no property tax while collecting top market rent.
The affordable house owner doesn't have to pay property taxes, and that's shifted on to the neighboring properties.
So,
And they get top market rent when we come.
so an affordable housing project, if it's a publicly owned affordable housing project or nonprofit, they do not have to pay taxes, property taxes. For a privately run affordable housing project, if they have any type of special limited partnership, they can also not pay property taxes, but that's for the term of their affordability. That's through a deed restriction on their property, and it's usually about 30 years. No one in the vicinity is paying additional property tax because they are not paying. They are paying what they're responsible for. So I want to make that clear. And if a project sort of ages out of its deed restriction, then yes, they have the option to change it into a market, but that means they would have to start paying property tax if they're a market rate project.
The property taxes have to be covered, all those services have to be covered, and the neighboring properties have to pick up the cost of that non-payer while they're getting.
You're talking about where we allocate money, though. That money would be spent one way or another. We're not changing your property tax. If you pay 5% and the person next to you has an affordable unit and they're not paying 5%, you still pay 5%. So I mean, your out of pocket is no different.
I talked to the county assessor, and that affordable housing property owner that's designated, chosen by the city council, they don't pay property taxes. That is shifted onto the rest because it raises everybody's property taxes. It does.
It would be helpful for the city staff to provide a comprehensive answer on that.
And I will also say there's only three positions that us on city council can appoint. That's the city manager, that is the city attorney, and that is the judge. And the city manager appoints things like the chief of police, that sort. We only have say over those three employees, and the city staff takes care of the rest. So we don't appoint for that.
You approve those properties.
We aren't having a debate here. We've answered a question that we know, and we now have, each counselor has something that was emailed in way in advance, so it has what staff has on the back. So Councilor Azadi, I gave it to you first, so you've had the longest to look.
I'm a slow reader, though. So the question says, under what circumstances would the city ever say no to multifamily and single-family residential development? And we've talked about this a little bit up here, but everything is guided by our comprehensive plan. And honestly, before it even gets to us, there's so the development process is very long, and we don't see all projects. So when we define and determine what the comprehensive plan looks like and what's in it, staff then gets that strategic direction to make sure what projects flow through and get to us eventually will conform and comply to the comprehensive plan. So there's tons of projects that we actually never get to see. So when you see us approving projects up there, it doesn't mean that we're approving everything. We approve what we see, and by the time we see it, it's already been vetted by staff and lots of other folks. So
When do you say no?
when do we say no?
When do you say
Well, council has said no many times in the past.
Because didn't they ask you that? When do you say no?
That's at the comprehensive plan.
Yeah, so the question was, would the city ever say no to multifamily and single family? And the answer is yes, we have said no over the years. We say yes a lot because by the time it gets to us, it's been vetted by a lot of folks who say this conforms, and we know we have a housing crisis and we need the housing. So lately you've been seeing more yeses, but that doesn't mean that we always say yes.
Councilor Carmelia.
All right. So my question concerns police enforcement of traffic. Police enforcement of existing traffic laws is lacking. People are running red lights like it's acceptable. Speeding is out of hand on city streets. I barely see any cops in general, much less enforcing a 6-point violation. I'd really like to see our Westminster police start to pull over people more frequently, as I bet the same ones are doing many of the higher crimes, taking the police's time. Okay, so I'm going to read off the answer and supplement a little bit. The police department takes a hard line on enforcing traffic laws, and they have increased visibility and enforcement recently. Traffic complaints have increased across the metro area, which was mentioned earlier. And Westminster is also working with other agencies to enforce traffic laws in common problem areas, which maximizes our impact and visibility. In 2023, the PD issued over 9,000 traffic violations. This is also a reminder, if you have a traffic complaint, please call our traffic hotline, and the number is here. If anybody wants me to read it off, I can, if you're taking notes. I don't see any hands. Okay. To add to this, I want to say that as many folks here that have been following Westminster issues know, we've had some vacancies, and it was mentioned earlier as well. We have 5 officers that are going to soon be joining our forces, which is very exciting. We have another 8 officers that are currently in training, and so this will fill up and reinforce our staff, which is great news to take care of a lot of these issues. And since last year, our police has been ramping up on their traffic violations and watching certain areas of the city. They are monitoring different corners and having these short programs for like a week or 2 at a time. And this has already dramatically, we've seen a decrease in traffic violations. So this is all to share that this is a priority. We happen to live in an area that this is a common problem, and our police department is aware, and they are working to do the best they can with the resources they have. And this is something that we're all very well aware of, and we're working the best we can on it.
My question that I was given is, surrounding communities have started impounding cars that are illegally modified to be loud in street racing. What is Westminster doing to address these problems? So I'll tell you that we talked about noise ordinances. That's a hard shell to crack. And so as far as street racing though, we actually were, I would say we're kind of at the forefront of changing some law or putting some in place that our police now, if a car is seen street racing, when they find that car, they can impound the car. And why that's important is sometimes you'll have people who run from the police, and the straight action of chasing that car at those speeds is dangerous for the officer, the person they're chasing, and everybody around them. And so this tool allows them to then say, I know that was the car, and take the car, where before they didn't know who was driving it, and there wasn't anything on the books that said they could hold somebody accountable because they couldn't say for sure who was driving the car necessarily. So this gives them some tools. There's some due process around it. So say maybe it's a teenager out joyriding their dad's vet or something, they can get their car back and maybe say, I'm not gonna let my kid drive my car. But there's a process that goes around it. So it's very important. When we were talking about street racing earlier, the mayor mentioned about somebody being killed. I will tell you that taking property is a very heavy thing for me, and it's not something I take lightly. However, we did lose life in the city of Westminster. If those of you who remember, there was a young lady who was turning out of the City Park Rec Center. There were 2 people who I'm sure were just thinking they're having a good time speeding up Sheridan. And if you know that hill, they didn't see each other. They came over that hill and hit that young lady, and she died. So this is a very important thing for us to address, and that's the reason why we have taken some pretty large steps in allowing law enforcement some extra tools in order to combat street racing in our city.
My question is there any plan to widen the sidewalks along 72nd Street to provide more safety for walkers? The city is currently underway on a 72nd corridor study, which is evaluating safety and transportation improvements from Pierce on the west to Zune on the east. The considerations for improvements to sidewalks, roadway width, and intersections, those are being considered. The study will provide conceptual cross-sections along the corridor to prepare for construction documents. The Planning Division is in early discussions around a potential rezoning of the properties in the core of the neighborhood, which allow for high-quality, context-sensitive infill development and reduce regulatory burden. These efforts are being coordinated closely with the drafting of the Unified Development Code that is currently underway. The Harris Park plan was also used to provide input to the 2040 Comprehensive Plan, which identifies Harris Park neighborhood as having potential for accessory dwelling units, ADUs. You'll hear that in the news a lot. The Economic Development Department is spearheading the adaptive reuse of the Rodeo Market Building, which has been asked about tonight, to create a restaurant destination in the neighborhood, which is highly sought after by the community members. And if you guys would also send me these so that they have their full context. Thank you.
I have 2 questions on mine. Why isn't there more enforcement for speeding, DUI, and road rage? Why do we allow electric vehicles on bike paths, especially operated by children going over 20 miles per hour? And I think since we already heard from Councilor Carmelia regarding the efforts of the police department on the speeding and road rage incidents, I'm going to skip down to just answering the e-bikes question. So I don't know, have you all seen somebody out on the sidewalks? Yeah, my daughter almost got run over by somebody on one of those. So this is something that is common for, everybody is trying to figure out what to do with e-bikes and how to regulate them. It's very difficult. We do not have an ordinance right now that regulates e-bikes. There's 3 classes of them. Don't ask me to differentiate between all of them, but there's classes 1 and 2, which are their max speed is 20 miles per hour. Those are allowed on sidewalks and trails. The class 3 bikes are restricted to just roadways. So outside of radar guns that we would have to set up, it would be difficult to enforce e-bike ordinances. Again, these are all on trails and sidewalks, so our police officers are not out there. So we would have to think about how do we actually catch people doing this and find them and find them. So we don't have any specific markings as well on the different types of class of e-bikes, so it's very difficult to figure out, are you allowed on this or not? This answer is not probably what any of us want to hear at this point, but this is something that, again, we are all trying to understand in the transportation and mobility world for all of municipalities. So I'm hoping that collectively we're going to find a way to better regulate these because, yeah.
So my question says, hello, can the City of Westminster fund an assessment to determine whether there is a need for a prescribed burn of the area surrounding the Great Western Reservoir and the Westminster Hills open space? The open space staff has evaluated utilizing prescribed fire on the Westminster Hills open space. Broomfield would be the managing agency for the Great Western. While there would be benefits to a prescribed burn, including improved nutrient cycling, invasive weed control, and maintenance of native grasses, there would also be a very short-term 1 to 2 year reduction in fire danger. Hopefully, the complexity of such a burn in a highly developed urban setting, including state requirements for both smoke and fire management, and the risk involved in managing a fire in this area is a tricky problem that we have not yet solved for. The open space group continues to manage for healthy grasslands using all of the tools available.
Okay, here's mine. Since we are forced to have our view ruined by the ugly, useless, monstrous monstrous cell tower erected in our Westview Rec Center parking lot without any advance warning or opportunity to block this horrible decision? Could you not further abuse us by removing our useful, convenient, and greatly utilized recycling bins? The cost of providing them for our community is more than covered by the kickback you are being paid and agreed to behind our backs for the benefit of a phone company. Our property values are directly affected by the loss of the mountain views. Proximity of our recycling bins is a huge benefit to our seniors, especially. Obviously, they are extremely popular with so many unwanted decisions being forced upon us locally and statewide. Could you not have the decency to let us keep a wonderful addition that we love so much? If you would be transparent and fully disclose the income from the cell tower and contrast that to yanking away our recycling bins, it wasn't broke. It doesn't need to be removed. Please, I literally begging you. So the answer does not address the cell towers. I don't know how that decision is made. I know that there's someone in the city that does that because I've spoke to them about cell towers in my own neighborhood. So I hope there's some city staff to address why that cell tower was put where it was. Because someone in our city determined that that was okay. I'm telling you that right now. As far as the bins go, I have an answer here, but I'll give you my answer. I voted against the recycling center. I did not hear one resident except for one that wanted the new recycling center. All the ones I heard from wanted to keep the way it was. The cost for the old recycling way was $188,000. The new one is up to over $400,000 to start. It's a 5-year contract. We're in it for 5 years, guys. It's already been done. I'm the only one that voted against it. I think that there's technology that is taking over the way we do recycling. I see it. There's bins that will actually sort your trash for you already. So I think that having to drive clear to the new downtown to take my recycling is not sustainable. I'm driving to take my recycling. How is that sustainable? And the cost is double what we were doing. This is why I ran for office, guys. I'm tired of this stuff, just like you are. And we need to stop spending the taxpayers' money when the taxpayers are the ones that said they didn't want the recycling center. They wanted it the way it was. And this is what I'm listening to. I'll read the answer from the staff. The centralized location, which we are referring to as a sustainable center. It's at least 20 minutes from my house. I don't know about you. Who goes to the new downtown? The road into that new recycling center is atrocious. And the hours are only 9 to 2, Monday through Friday, 9 to 2 on Saturday. Are you guys gonna go during those hours? I definitely am not. Anyway, the centralized location, which we are referring to as a sustainable center because it will be able to offer more services than traditional recycling, will be located within a 10-minute drive for 80% of residents. It will be clean and the staff will ensure a positive interaction with residents. The center will replace the 4 current unmonitored drop-off locations, including the one at Westview. In the spring, after the 30-day transition period, the current drop-off sites were becoming unsafe, users improperly disposed of dangerous or toxic items that were not suitable for recycling. There was broken glass and spilled chemicals on the ground. Users also contaminated recycling bins with materials that were not recyclable, which required the city to pay additional fees to have the materials hauled to the landfill. On average, the city spent about 20 hours a week cleaning the sites. Ultimately, the sustainable center will create a safer, cleaner, and more streamlined recycling services for residents. It's double the cost, guys.
Councilor Carmelia?
Yes, and I'll just add a little bit more color around this issue to make sure we have all the information. So there are challenges to any new direction that the council takes, and what this recycling plant will allow for is increased recycling for the city. I don't know about you, but frequently I go to drop my stuff off and it's overflowing. And so now we will have the availability that we need, and we won't have to keep the recycling in your car and come back the next day when it stinks in your car. It will also ensure that what we are sending to the recycling plant is recycled. Many residents, we mean well, and I've been guilty of it myself, but we practice wish cycling, which means that you put something in there that doesn't necessarily belong in there, and that means it has now contaminated everything else in the bin. And when that happens at these plants, everything that goes into that dumpster is now taken to the landfill, which I don't know if folks know about that. And our city spends about 20 hours each week on employee hours taking recycling to the landfill. So the stuff that we're bringing, all that time and effort that we're putting into it right now, unfortunately, it's all for naught, which is a shame. It will also increase availability of what we're able to recycle because it will be staffed. That means that we will be able to get rid of hazardous items that I often save in my house, you know, for a good year or two until you figure out what to do with it, or your batteries, you know, you finally take it all to work. Well, now you can drop it somewhere in your city, which is exciting. I think that we're going to be taking care of some hazardous chemicals as well, and paint and other items. So I just wanted to make sure that we have a little more information on the topic.
Just to follow up, those extra items will cost you extra. So I guess there's a site you can find out how much that is. They didn't tell me at the meeting. They didn't tell me what it costs to do a computer or whatever. I didn't get that number, but apparently there's a site you can look it up.
I was also just going to add, not on the recycling center, but on the wireless facilities. The state actually requires cities to accommodate these wireless facilities. We don't have a lot of control over location. We can't arbitrarily say, no, sorry, not there. Yes, we have some ability to kind of say, hey, what about over here? Can you cover it in maybe this way? But we have a discrete timeline. It's a short timeline to respond, and that's all regulated again by the state. So I just wanted to make that clear, and that we are not the ones that are going out to solicit for where these towers should be. That is something that is led by each of the individual cell providers. So we would love to have better cell whatever it is, cell access throughout the rest of the city. My calls drop every day. So, but that is up to our cell providers.
I want to say thank you. You have done a great job sitting here, listening to all the questions. You are the ones that make a difference. You're the eyes of your neighborhood, your street, your friends that are around you. If you're an apartment building, you still are the eyes and ears of all of us, because you get to know your neighbors, so you know if people are supposed to be in that apartment building or not. Any place you go, you are the eyes and ears. Never assume somebody else called something in. If Chief was sitting here, he would tell you, I would rather have 10 calls instead of 0 calls, because they can't do anything when you're sitting home writing on Nextdoor, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da happened, and everybody starts pulling in, and nobody has even the truth there. So please call when you need, then even if it's the non-emergency number, I've called that a few times, just to say, just want to put this on the docket so it gets looked at some point in time. We need you. Thank you for taking an hour and a half to be here with us tonight, and have a safe week.